Okay, right on, right on. So we're going to get this thing rolling. My name is Gabriel Descussions, and I have Officer Shanette Hall with us today. And so we're going to go ahead and dive into the discussion, but we're going to do a little bit of introduction. This is called the Right to Remain Vocal, and this is a candid conversation with police. As this is going to be ongoing, we're going to have a few of these conversations to really just address a lot of societal issues, be candid about them, be open, be honest about them, the issues that we have seen faced in police brutality and Black community, and we're going to have this dialogue as everyday people, understanding that, hey, I'm a citizen, but you know what, also Ms. Hall is a citizen as well, though her vocation is law enforcement. We're going to take on both those angles, and we're going to do it constructively, positively, and then we'll have a moment at the end where, as you are looking on live, you'll get a chance to chime in, and I'll give a cue to that, like, hey, if anyone has any questions they want to throw it into the chat. And my wonderful fiance, Andrea, who y'all don't see, is behind the camera, so she'll be able to see your question and be able to say it out to us, so that way we can address that. As I said, I have Ms. Hall with us today, and I got a chance to meet her at the Save Our Sons program in Ferguson, which is under the direct leadership of Mr. Jamie Dennis. Also, their other staff there is Mr. Anthony Cage, and a few other staff there that are there working with those young men, working and just teaching them work ethic, work skills, teaching them those soft skills to help get their foot in the door of employment. I was formerly an instructor there as well, and I enjoyed my time there, and still to this day enjoy the work and love the work that the Save Our Sons program does. It's July 4th. What's up? You know what I'm saying? What was the plan if you wasn't going to be here doing this?
The plan was going to be sitting at home. we don't celebrate too many. We don't have very many celebrations on July 4th.
Right.
That's not our holiday. So no, the plan was going to be sitting at home.
Hey, and look, we got you out at 9 in the morning on a Saturday. Well, this is awesome. I'm really excited to have you for you to be able to chime in. Mm-hmm. I saw a couple of your articles that you were in so far, and I love, and I've said this before, I really support law enforcement that say, we see this as an issue and we want change.
Yeah.
And I think, to me, sitting on the side of being a civilian and being able to say, hey, there are law enforcement out there that say, hey, this is not okay. There are law enforcement out there that say, hey, like this is a crime too.
Right.
And so that, to me, I think, to be able to have an objective conversation, to be able to look and see that we can agree on those things, mm-hmm. and then we can come together and say, okay, how do we move forward?
Correct.
And I think that's what it's about. It's about remembering that, yes, we are people. Behind the badge, you're still a person.
Correct.
And I'm still a person. And whether you commit a crime, you're still a person.
Correct.
At the end of the day. And so these are among some of the things we're going to talk about. But I want to know about you. I want to know, let's talk about, what are your hobbies? What is life in STL for you? Are you from St. Louis?
Oh, of course.
All day. All day.
Yeah, more specifically University City, but we'll leave that part alone. But no, life in STL is amazing. This is this is an absolute wonderful place. Like I don't think I could have been raised any other place but here. St. Louis is home all day long. The many attributes that we have in our city that a lot of people actually don't know about. It's what makes us, if you will. Everything that we are not is also everything that we are. Is what makes us that as well. So that makes sense, right? Slight little Kanye line in there a little bit. Okay. But St. Louis is amazing because it's we are so diverse. We have all of these aspects about St. Louis that could potentially make us a lot better than what we are. Sometimes we have a bit of an issue trying to integrate our different identities because for whatever reason, there's a number of different reasons why. But St. Louis, like I said, is actually amazing. Just get back that you asked me different hobbies and stuff. One of the greatest hobbies now at this point is traveling. Obviously with COVID, can't do that as much, but exploring different lands, different people, different cultures, that is my greatest hobby. Like that is my best thing to do. So we kind of have to do that a little bit in St. Louis and around St. Louis a little bit more since I can't hop on a plane as easily and go. But that is my absolute most favorite thing to do is traveling.
That's what's up. That's what's up. And I'm sure, like you said, I mean, with COVID-19, I'm sure you've probably found all kinds of nooks and crannies in St. Louis that you didn't even know existed. You know, but with that, what is one place that that you've discovered so far that it's your favorite spot?
So, and I discovered it a while ago, and I won't even say just discovered on my end, but found it for me personally. Yeah. But where I like going is down to the Mary Meacham site, which is just north of downtown, and this is pretty neglected. Mayor like a cruising. I'm sure you got a lot going on right now. But
I got the team here for a reason.
I mean, hey, whatever. You know, this is definitely something also that we can begin to, people can begin to embrace and look at. You know, we're talking about a number of different things of changing street signs and you know, all these other stuff amongst the many of things that she needs to do in St. Louis City. But one thing that we also can do is make sure that we are upkeeping a lot of our historic sites as they relate to African American history. So we talk about, you know, Mary Meacham, and we want to make sure we embrace the Shelley House. When we're talking about our different grave sites that we have down at the many people that are buried in Calvary Cemetery. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, the number of different places. So those are a lot of the areas, if you will, the sites that I just kind of like to go to and chill and just reflect and think and all those great things. So.
Okay, that's what's up. That's what's up. So what made you become an officer? What led you? I mean, your life, you know, from your experience growing up in St. Louis up till now, what led you to being an officer?
There were two main factors that led me to become an officer. One was my father was a police officer. My uncles were all police officers too, but my father was a police officer. He was in the military for the first 19 years as far as his career, his working experience, and then he was a police officer, at which time that's what he retired from. My dad was my absolute best friend in the whole wide world. Like everything about him, I wanted to be. So growing up, looking at him, seeing how he treated people. One thing I like to say is that we did another article where I called him equity referee, and that was one thing that I wanted to be in my life. Seeing him give people chances when they needed second chances, and sometimes even when they needed third chances. That is exactly what I wanted to be. So I said, I'm gonna grow up and I'm gonna be just like my dad. That's what I wanted to do. And then right as I was getting into the point of starting my career, getting into my adult years, my brother was actually killed in the city of St. Louis, probably about 10 minutes away from here. And just seeing how that whole process went of them saying that they was investigating, the police officers were investigating, and to this day I don't feel as if they did their due diligence. But just going through that whole process and seeing how the trauma affected not only his immediate family, but then his friends and then communities of, you know, another murder that happened, another murder that was unsolved. Just all of that into that, I said, you know, I want to get involved in this. I want to figure out how I can do something as well.
That's
so
awesome.
Those are the two main reasons.
That's what's up. And thank you as well for, I guess I can say thank you to you for their service. You know, so if you see them, tell them.
Right.
But thank you for your service as an officer. Now you're a part of a board, or you had mentioned that. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What's the name of that?
So the Ethical Society of Police. The Ethical Society of Police was what I was wearing my shirt here today. The Ethical Society of Police is a fantastic organization. So the Ethical Society of Police is an organization that was founded in 1972 in the city of St. Louis by African American police officers. And it was founded to address race-based discrimination, not only within the police department, but then also within the community. Obviously, just as in 1972 up until now in 2020, there are a number of different issues that are present because of race-based discrimination. And so the fight still continues. But the Ethical Society is an amazing organization, and I don't think I could ever have been a part of, even a board member of any other organization, or be a proud one as much as I am of this one. So we've always been a champion for fairness, equality, and equity when needed. We are constantly being vocal, remain entrenched into the community, making sure we are doing things that need to be done in the community, but then also within the police departments, making sure we are holding police departments accountable when they're unable to hold themselves accountable for things that they are doing, making sure that we are calling out all of those inequities, making sure we're calling out all of those unfair treatments to Black and brown folks, because we have that knowledge of the departments, and then we are also we have the knowledge that of all the issues that are existing within the community. So I couldn't think of any other organization that will do what we do.
That's good. That's good. And I'm glad, having this conversation with you. I'm actually learning more about them. And I'm not a St. Louis native myself. I was born in Miami, Florida.
Okay.
Spent a lot of time, down south, north. Spent some time in Kansas City as well. And to come here and to learn that this kind of society exists and is vocal, that's something that's definitely intrigued me, and I definitely want to learn more about them as time goes on. So we'll definitely talk a lot more about that as well. So what challenges do you face being a Black woman, being a police officer, and then how do those challenges make you feel? What are your thoughts on that?
Right. So within the police department, right, the challenges, and so one thing that we have to sometimes remind folks of when you see minorities, and I'm just going to speak out Black folks being police officers, is that I'm Black first all day long. I don't. My initial identifier is not that of a police officer. I'm Black, and then I'm a woman who happens to be a police officer. And so that's something that I think that is extremely important. And so now when we travel these worlds of working in the police department and being a police officer, we have to know that discriminatory practices or any type of retaliatory practices or anything, all of these different issues that people have to deal with on a daily basis, it does not stop when you walk into a different atmosphere. It does not stop if you become a police officer. It does not stop if you become a doctor, a lawyer, a politician, whatever. It does not stop. And so it still remains difficult when you're in that. We have to understand that law enforcement is predominantly made up of white males, completely opposite of what I am, right? When we're talking about race and when we're talking about gender. So those issues that come along are very prevalent. When you try to have a sense of culturally enriched conversation with somebody else of the majority as a law enforcement being a white male, oftentimes it's not either conveyed or received as good as it should be. I've had issues, then once again, being a female, you have issues of making sure that you are heard, making sure that you are treated fairly, because sometimes people are not, like I said, it doesn't stop once you become a police officer. Making sure that you are calling folks out on their culturally tone-deaf comments, their insensitive, their just lack of cultural competency all across the board. You have to call them out all day long. And then while you're calling them out, it's somewhat difficult too when you're a police officer, because now we are oftentimes in situations where it can either be life or death for us, or it can be quite dangerous. So if you have someone that's kind of distancing themselves from you, and then you are all supposed to be out here together fighting the evil of crime and violence against people, right? You begin to kind of see yourself alone within their world. So it gets to be difficult. We've had, I can't tell you how many one of my mentors, Heather Taylor, and a friend of mine, a lot of the incidents she's been through is not, it is known amongst many of other Black females, or just females, period, of being, kind of just left on calls by yourself when you start calling out stuff. And it's a dangerous world, but you gotta keep doing it. Because if not you, then who,
Yeah, no, that's real. And with that, you I remember in what you said, you said that sometimes it gets lonely, being in that world. How does mental health kind of play to kind of balance and be a tool that you can rely on? How would you say, do you engage in mental health? And is that something that's helpful, in being in that world?
Yeah, you have to. You have to. Mental health should be a priority. You got to look at this. On top of this, of dealing with the issues of being a double minority in such a profession, you have to look at the profession itself. So a lot of police officers have mental health issues as they're dealing with things, because you got to look at the type of job, the nature of the job that we have. We're constantly seeing things that your average person will not see. We are constantly seeing death. We are constantly seeing acts of violence against the elderly, against children, against people who just cannot protect themselves. We see this stuff on a daily basis. And that begins to take a toll on me, And so that's something that's extremely important. I mean, the suicide rates among police officers is something that's very high, and sometimes often gets overlooked when we're talking about this. And so you gotta work on your mental health. You gotta keep that in check as best as possible, and make sure you are doing things to keep you aligned with the most positive of health situations as possible. So that's a struggle too with them. So.
Oh yeah, indeed. And I would, it is almost expected to be, like you said, with everything that you see, and sometimes, I would think, I've never been a police officer. At one point, I was a juvenile adjudicated youth director, and so I used to report to the courts and work with DJOs on the process of, youth felons and sex offenders. And just in that position, I could feel the strain. Right. So I can imagine, like you said, walking in, to deal with in your line of work. And I can imagine that if your mental health is not a priority, I can imagine how it can easily run away.
Correct. Correct.
And so I just, I want to say, and I want to ask, do you believe that you have these challenges, or you experience these challenges because you're a Black woman, because you're a police officer, or all of the above? Where do you think that these challenges kind of, the pinnacle, where do they rest?
Me personally, what I can say is a lot of the challenges that I have received or have had to face in life have been because I was Black, and then because I was a woman. I've had a few challenges, of course, of being a police officer, but those existed within the department itself. I haven't really had very many challenges within the community of being a police officer, because when you treat folks right, you don't really have that many issues. You don't have issues with the community. When you treat folks like human beings, like you would want to treat your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, whoever, you don't have those issues as much. Those issues begin to show their face when you were not treating people like people. And that's yes, you don't treat people like people, and then what we are seeing a lot of times when we're talking about these societal issues and the things that exist within police departments is because they have, a lot of times, folks' biases show all day long, right? And they begin to treat people based upon their biases. And then that's when they begin to go from being implicit to explicit. And those acts that you see explicitly from police officers, when we're talking about the majority of folks, and it's not all white male police officers, because then it begins to fall a little bit into authoritative type of mentality where sometimes people are just officers are oppressing other people because they have the power to do so. Sometimes you don't see the color, but oftentimes it has to do with the color of people. It has to do with the lower socioeconomic status of people. So that's, like I said, when that authoritative role begins to come into play. But me personally, the things that I have seen have often had to deal with race and gender. That's just what I see.
And that's why I ask, because your experience is powerful. And when you speak from that experience, I mean, I can't argue with you, or for anyone for that matter,
right,
to say, I've experienced this. And I've, felt this. And from there, when we have these kind of conversations, that's what I'm trying to drive home, is that there is a group of people that is experiencing something in America where it's a land that's supposed to be, home of the free.
Yeah, right.
It's
supposed to be right.
Right? and so then you have another group of people that are saying, that's false, or they should not be doing this. Or nonetheless, you are speaking from our experience.
Yep.
And I should not have to defend my experience.
Oh, of course.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not, you should not have to defend your experience. So that's what we're trying to, just get down to. What are your thoughts on the concept of good and bad cops? Can a few bad apples spoil the bunch?
And that's an interesting question, because it's interesting because we ask it. And I think that question begins to drive people apart from each other, because that's something that we know. We know that there are good and bad folks in everything. We know that as people, we know that there are what some would consider good people, bad people. We know that there are good teachers, bad teachers. We know that there are good politicians. We know that there are good mayors and bad mayors. I mean, we know all of these different things. But we are not having these conversations because of the good folks. You know what I'm saying? We are not here because of that. We are here because of the people who are being labeled as bad, who are doing things that are bad. So when sometimes when that question arises, and a lot of times people like to say, well, hey, look, we have good cops. We have good cops. It almost doesn't matter that we have good cops. You're supposed to have good police officers. So what? Like, why are we talking about that? That's supposed
to have good parents.
Yes, that's supposed to come. But the fact that we don't, and the fact that all of them are not, is the reason why we are having these conversations. And that is where all of our focus needs to be put towards. Why do we have these bad police officers? Why do we have these police officers that feel like they can do whatever they want? Why do we have police officers that can go and still murder people, especially unarmed black men and even black women as well too? Why do we feel this? Why do we still have this going on? What systems, what structures do we have in place that is still allowing this? That is where the focus needs to be, not just towards the good cops. Like, it's almost a pet peeve when I'm getting a little singular in these things now. All these trying to promote the fact that the little stereotypical picture of the white male cop shooting basketball with the black kid in the back. We know this stuff exists, right? But we're not arguing that.
Right.
Stop doing that. Right. Get out here and do some things that can actually be used as some good towards the community.
Right.
Do that. Put some structures into play. Community policing is much different now. This is not your typical, community policing is just, like I said, mentioned playing basketball. That's good, but there's so much more that we need to be doing. So that whole good cop, bad cop thing, stop it. And then even the folks that try to label themselves as good cops, all right, that's fine. You can't necessarily just you can't be a self-proclaimed good cop when you're not out here calling out all of these other people that are right next to you doing some of the bad stuff. You can't be a self-proclaimed good cop when we have all of these other people. Because 9 times out of 10, when bad cops are actually doing something, other people know about it. The people, their partners know about it, their leaders, their supervisors know about it, the chiefs may know about it, all these other people may know about it, but they're ignoring it. So who is actually really a good cop, if you will, and who is a bad one?
That's good. Yep. Yeah, she ready. She came. Look. So would you say then that you strive to be, and I know our thoughts on good cop, but would you say that you strive to be a good cop? And what does being a good cop look like to you? What does the oath mean to you?
Yeah, so I strive to be a good person. One thing, or some things that I often hear us say, like it's just young Black folks sometimes, like I'm never gonna do anything to embarrass my mom, my mother, or my father. And so with that being said, I'm gonna get out here and I'm gonna act like I got some sense, right? I'm gonna be respectful. I am going to make sure that people are treated fairly. I'm gonna make sure that in my profession now that I am upholding the law. But then also, I'm going to make sure that I'm able to use this discretion, because when we talk about laws, what we see is one time what Brian Stevenson said from EJI is that what is just is not always law, what is law is not always just. So we have to be able to make sure that we factor that into what it is that we are doing, especially since we have discretion as police officers. But of course, I mean, I would label myself as a good police officer, but I would label myself as a good person. You know what I mean? Being a police officer is not who I describe myself as being. I would like to be seen as a good person, a good Black person. I would like to be seen as a good person. And so, given the fact that I strive to make sure that I'm a good person, that's going to be seen through my efforts of being a police officer.
So it sounds like it correlates, it bleeds through. You know, it's like, hey, you know, I've worked on me, and I'm working on me. I'm continuing to work on me, and continuing to, you know, practice those principles that I came up on, that I came up around. And those things apply. The personhood applies to the badge, not the other way around.
Correct. And we have to make sure that we are, because that sounds easy and it is sometimes, but then what we also have to constantly remind ourselves that even I get to the point of where my biases can be seen, right? So you constantly have to, like you said, work on yourself. There can be a person that comes from, I have coworkers that tell me about the boot heel. I never heard of. I knew what the boot heel was. Yeah, I don't know. Like, oh, okay, boot heel. Like, I'm always in Memphis. Like, I don't know. But, you know, right? So, just because we have folks that come from, more rural areas or areas where there's not as much diversity, it doesn't necessarily have to mean that that person is a bad person. However, what it should mean that, you know, what someone should always strive to work on is to make sure they have some sense of cultural competency, especially in a field such as ours, when we are constantly met with people from all different, you know, races, genders, from different backgrounds. I mean, under all the protected classes, right? So we have to make sure that our communication levels are sound when we are having interactions with people, because we have interactions with all types of folks. So it is almost as that is placed upon the person to make sure that they have that ability to speak with all different types of folks. So whether it's that, you know, I come from St. Louis, like I said, more specifically U City, or if it's somebody that comes from the Boot Hill or somewhere else, we have to constantly work on those things, and that's what honestly is going to make us all better at some point.
Awesome. Thank you. Have you ever had to correct the actions of a fellow officer? And if so, how hard was that to do? And does the atmosphere within the police department make that hard, or is that something hard or easy to do?
Yeah, I've definitely had to do that. I've had to do it from just a singular interaction with a person. If I'm just with one other police officer, you know, you kind of have to tell somebody, like, hey, hold on, we tripping. Like, what are you doing? Stop. Or whether it gets to the point where we're trying to change structures. And so that's one thing that we've had to face now with the Ethical Society, of trying to bring the Ethical Society to St. Louis County. That was a little bit of a different fight, if you will. It called for some different tactics. And so you're going to receive pushback from a number of different areas, or a number of different ways. You'll get pushback all the time. But no, I've gotten pushback a number of different ways. And you have to change your fight up each time, because it's easy for me to come to you when we're working next to each other. And it's easy for me to tell you to stop doing something, and then have a conversation with you afterwards to tell you how that may have not been the best approach. But now when we are trying to change the way departments handle situations and handle people and stuff. Now that's going to cause for a little bit of a different tactic. So you have to use that. Yeah.
Okay. And I don't know what happened to the light, but yeah, check the battery sometimes. So what are your thoughts on the Black community and this fight for justice? And do you think that there are other alternatives that the community members can do or use to fight for justice?
Man, so that's an extremely loaded question because we have so much work we have to do, right? And so when we're fighting for justice, that justice has one face, but it has a multitude of like subsections if you will to it, right? And so when we're fighting for, there's no one answer. And a lot of times when we try to figure out these things and we're like, hey, obviously the main answer is to make things right, to make things just, right? But in order to do that, you have to change so much. When we're trying to fight for justice as it relates to like police brutality and all the different stuff, we have to understand why it exists in the first place. The very foundation of America is built on violence and racism, and so trying to dismantle a lot of these different things, it gets difficult. It's something that is needed, and we have to, in order to dismantle like the injustices that exist from police departments to people, we have to understand how police departments were started in the beginning. We have to understand how they were used as slave patrols. We have to understand how when slavery was abolished or outlawed, that vagrancy laws and everything was interactive with one another. So in order to fight these injustices, we truly have to understand why they exist in the first place. And then we have to fight it from that area and from that level. So fighting it looks like accountability. Fighting it looks like police legitimacy. Fighting it looks like, at some point, training. Training is definitely not a cure-all. Fighting it looks like training. Fighting it looks like getting rid of chiefs and police commissioners, mayors. Fighting it looks like all of this. And so we have to make sure that people are put into place to fight all of those different pieces of injustice.
That's real. So. And perfect. Thank you. We brown folk, so we in this corner. We gotta keep that light on it. But no, thank you. Because that's, like you said, it's a lot, and it's a lot of different angles, and then there's a lot of different purposes that I feel like, different groups of people have in that, in that fight. And you in the previous question brought up the challenges that, you've seen just trying to get the society out there to the county. We'll probably go into it a little bit deeper because I saw an article where you were talking about how some of those police who have issues go out there to, St. Anne and those different places. So how do crimes in Black community relate to issues of police brutality? So
when you look at how police departments and police officers respond to different people, it differs, and it shouldn't, because we are always here. You have to always remember that police officers are supposed to protect and serve, right? But what you begin to see is one person, a retired officer, Mr. Buchanan, he worked in the city, what he would say all the time is, what you begin to see is these police departments and police officers, when they are working in Black and brown neighborhoods, or lower socioeconomic neighborhoods, they are sent there to guard and contain. And then when they are sent to white neighborhoods, sometimes they are sent there, or like higher socioeconomic neighborhoods, they are almost sit there to actually serve and protect them. So you begin to see this difference, this disparity in the policing efforts. You see that there are places that are being overserved, if you will, and there are places that are being underprotected. And that's totally not fair. And so that way, that's where you're seeing our issues all the time. And so one thing that we always like to say, even from the Ethical Society, in order to fight crime, we have to care about suspects before they ever even become a suspect. And so we're not doing that in our Black and brown communities or in our urban communities. So in this same community right here, if we are not caring about suspects before they ever become one, then what is it that we are even truly doing? We have to begin to almost serve more than we're protecting, because when you begin to serve neighborhoods more, quite naturally it's going to be a fight towards crime anyway. Because now we're serving more folks, we're making sure that they're receiving the resources that they need. We're making sure that we're protecting folks before they even get involved, before they even become a victim. Because what we see is sometimes is there's this correlation between victimization and then a life of crime as well too. People are victimized, then sometimes they fall into this type of crime. So you have to care about people first, and that's what we are not necessarily doing. The same over-serving tactics that you have in some neighborhoods, you need to bring that down here to the north of Del Mar, the same way you bring it to south of Del Mar, right? You the same stuff that we were out here doing to the McCloskey's house, or with all of this, making sure that they are protected. You need to be protecting folks over on Capital and North Grand, off of 22nd, all the other streets too. The same things need to exist. So until we can have police departments and the efforts and the will from police departments collectively and cohesively, making sure that they are serving folks appropriately, the same way we serve them down there on Portland Place or whatever street it is that they live on, right? The same way we serve them folks over there, you better serve them folks up north too. The same way you serve them folks
that came out straight.
Yeah, in Lafayette Square, you better serve folks like that up on Charlotte or in the Goodfellow neighborhood. That's a lot of this falls upon police departments when they are not doing what it is that they are supposed to do. And when they are doing it, you need to make sure that you're doing it from an equitable place. You have to make sure that you are almost giving it to your most vulnerable neighborhoods just as much as you're giving it to the neighborhoods that you think you get more tax money and tax dollars out of. And that's where we are failing as police departments. So hopefully they begin to find that will, because if they never find that will, then they'll never find that way.
That's real. I like that. They never find that will, they'll never find that way either. I'm gonna have to coin that. That's a t-shirt. That's so, actually before we go to the next question, the way that you painted that picture of how the dynamic of, how some communities are being served and protected, other communities being guarded and contained. That wording in that picture that's painting in my mind from it it's so clarifying. It's so eye-opening. It's almost like, and I like to think of it this way, and I have at the core, a biblical background, faith-based background. I almost always, there's a expression in being a believer in Jesus Christ, and that's, there is no condemnation in those who are in Christ Jesus. And I think sometimes in the community, I see where there's condemnation in Black community. It's almost like a quick snap judgment. Oh, well, if they wasn't doing this, if they wasn't resisting, if they wasn't, doing X, Y, Z, then there wouldn't be an issue at all. But like you said previous to that, you said we need to bring that service to Black community, to different communities, to where we're looking at you as a person before you even become a criminal. That's real. And I think that for me, and I bring that point up because that really ties into my faith. Just that notion alone ties into my personal faith. And so our next question, it says, do you believe that Black community has a direct position pertaining these issues of community and police? And what would you say that position is?
So it depends on how one would interpret that question, if you will, because that question can be interpreted in a number of different ways. So if you're asking if the Black folks, if we have a position in how it is that we are being treated, so one could sit here and argue and say, okay, well, yes, we have a position answer because I'm going to tell you how it is that you are going to treat me. It depends on who it is that, kind of answering that question. So I can say, yes, I have a position answer because I'm going to tell you how it is that you need to treat me. I'm going to tell you what it is that I am going to accept or not accept. But at the same time, another person can sit here and argue and say, well, I mean, we have to, sometimes the cards are just like so stacked against us that when we are looking at these systems and structures that are making some obstacles have glass ceilings versus having brick ceilings versus just having, a ceiling that is just completely like all of these things are in place. So we can do a number of different things. Black and brown, we can do a number of different things. I mean, our tenacity, determination, strength, and will is unmatched.
Right. Clearly, for 400 years.
Well, it is unmatched for us. But to be quite honest, too, in order for us to, not even in order, but we are going to continuously fight for us. But we need some of these other folks to come and fight for us as well, too. Because we did not make this problem like we came here. We were forced here. We didn't come willing, we were forced here. So a lot of these other things that exist, we need some of our other folks to come along because we're still a minority. So we need some of our other allies to come along and say, hold on, wait, I'm standing on the side of the right and I'm going to demand that you treat folks as well the same way that I'm being treated. We need some of those folks who have that face of privilege to come and to be that ally. And when we talk about allies, we got to make sure that allies are not the folks, those self-proclaimed like, self-proclaimed like white liberals or progressives that's going to say, hey, look, I know what I'm doing. Hey, let me tell you how you need to treat black and brown folks. We don't want you to come and tell other folks how we need to be treated. We want you to uplift and empower us. So now we have a pedestal to stand on and we can say what it is that we need as well too. But come help us, be an ally for us and be one that is going to help. So I mean, it just depends on how you look at that question because there's a number of different that was like super broad. Like
but I think you brought it home because oftentimes I say I don't think that we should be. How can I say? I don't think that we should be led by anyone else. This is our outcry, and so if anyone else is coming in, there's their support. And like you said, our allies don't validate the movement. Correct. The movement is valid, with or without anybody. Correct. So when they're coming in, and I had a conversation with someone about this, just about protesting, and sometimes you have other groups of people, or other people from other communities, and they come in, and they're doing whatever, and they're not falling under the leadership of, the people who's actually organizing. Right. And so that's, and so then you see issues that even arise from that, where you're like, hold on, like. You kind of see that too. Like, so what is it that about other people that they are still so afraid? Like you say, you're with me. Right. But if you're with me, then uplift me or empower me. So you have to begin to look at folks who are calling themselves allies, who are still afraid to uplift black folks, who are still afraid to empower black folks. That's where you kind of got to look at it a little bit too. I'm like, hold on, you an ally? So you never watch people that is just still have all these self-proclamations, but we'll digress on that a little bit. Well, and we're bringing it home and coming to the climax of this. Where do you think black men fall in the issues of community and police? And then where do you think black women fall as well? And then what are their combined responsibilities to seeing better law enforcement practices and building up their communities? Man, you know what? Our combined responsibilities are to one another first. So I have a responsibility to you as a black woman to a black man, and you have a responsibility to me from a black man to a black woman to make sure that we are helping each other out. These are our responsibilities that we have. Now, collectively, what we're going to do is we're going to go harder. We're going to do what we need to do. Right. But I have a responsibility to love you as a black man, and you have one to love me as a black woman. Yeah. And that's what we have to remember as well. But then once we get past
I don't even say once we get past that, because we understand that. You know, that's one thing I can say I love about my friends, my brothers and sisters all day. We understand that love is needed amongst us, because there's going to be oftentimes that we don't receive that love from the rest of the world. So we thrive and we live off that love from one another. Now, once we have that love within us, it allows us to be that much greater when we are going out to fight. Because this is a marathon. I mean, this is this is not something that's going to be cured tomorrow or the day after tomorrow.
Shout to Nick.
I know, right? But this is one where we are constantly receiving victories as we go on, and we have to keep going. But that fight is hard. That fight, it worries down on our body, our mental health, what we were talking about. It worries down on a lot of different aspects or parts of us. So as long as we can know that we can continue to come home, if you will, not necessarily just our actual houses, but as long as we know we can come back, yes, for our communities, those places of solace, whether it be the Black church, the community centers, our neighborhood streets, actually inside our homes, whatever it is, as long as we know we can come back to those places and receive a sense of rejuvenation and that love from our Black men, from our sisters, of other men. Yeah. That is what is needed. And so, but we have that. I mean, we love each other all day. You know what I'm saying? I have so much love for you. For everybody that we see coming out, we have so much love for each other. So that's one of the things that I'm most grateful for. You know?
That's awesome. Yeah, that's real. I think, like you said, that love is important. To love ourselves, oftentimes I think we see in the community, and we can trace these roots where that love has been distorted.
Right.
And we can trace those roots back to where it was taught to be distorted. Mm-hmm. Which we know is slavery, which we know is oppression.
Right.
But like you said, it's as it comes full circle, that is at the core. Is the love that we have for each other, for our communities, for I even like what you said, like to be able to even find solace in not only your home, your own community, the Black church, your recreation centers. I mean, and I think that's something that I really enjoy about St. Louis is because you see so many different events and so many different gathering places to feel that.
Right.
And I've lived in Atlanta, I've lived in Florida, Kansas City. Atlanta has a lot, but out of all the other places I lived, I don't see as much of those spaces that created vibe and that atmosphere like I do in St. Louis.
Yeah.
And so, and what are your thoughts on some of the most recent killings? So we're talking about, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, what's the young man, Elijah McClain. Even going as far back to Mike Brown. I mean, what are your thoughts on these recent killings?
Yeah. It's hard because you sit back and you think how much more can we take? And it's damning, it's destructive, I don't even know if we can put a word to it sometimes. It's hard because we've seen these things over and over, like you said. We've seen the murder of Black men. We've seen the murder of Black women, because we cannot forget too that our police brutality that exists amongst Black women. Black women are killed and abused and assaulted. We cannot forget about our Black women, but it's hard. So I want to be. I like that how a lot of different things are changing some things, because I'm not necessarily 100% into the symbolic acts of reform, if you will. Some of the statues gotta go, some of the street names gotta change, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But until we can begin to see when folks are actually, until we begin to see where laws are being changed, until we can begin to see where policy is changing, until we can begin to see where we don't have to protest in order for an officer to be fired when they murder somebody. Like that should be given.
Right.
We shouldn't have to come out and demand this. We should not have to come out in the masses. We should not have to come out and within this country, and even in Germany where we see they've had some of the largest protests.
Yeah.
Now I'm glad to see that solidarity among some people, but I want that solidarity to continue past holding up the Black Lives Matter sign. I want that solidarity to continue past the chants and the words. They got to continue into our elections. They have to continue into when we begin to see representation of folks. They have to continue into something that's actually going to change. That's going to change more. Because we want you to come out and hold the sign too. That's fine. Yeah. But right after you come from holding that sign and walking down King's Highway or whatever it is that you're doing, you better make sure you take that back to your job and tell them how you need more diversity in these departments, these corporations and companies. You better go tell them that too. Hold your sign in your office. Your boss, your CEO, your COO, hold that sign with them as well too, and demand that change there. So I like that we are seeing, folks come out. One thing that I would like to see as well is I would like to see the folks who are holding the Black Lives Matter signs or saying different things. I would like to see them know why they have to hold those signs. Because it's easy for somebody to come out on a Saturday or Friday night. It's easy for you to come out and say, okay, we're going to hold this. I need you to know why you're holding this.
Right.
I need you to know how damning this is to us. I need you to see how we are suffering from the murders of folks that are being committed from police officers. I need you to know that this happens, and I need you to figure out how to help us. Because it's going to continue happening. Right. We've seen these things happening. We've seen these things happening all the way back to Emmett Till. Like it's still here. It keeps happening and happening and happening and happening. And now we want to have conversations. We want to talk. That's fine. We can have conversations. But at some point while you're having these conversations, you won't have to get up off your tail and get on your feet. You won't have to do something about it. Because we tired. Like we've been tired. We've been tired. So it's hard to go back to your question. It's hard to watch. Even coming from a person who sees death all the time and who sees murders, this one is hard. There's no one there. I mean, we literally are just being killed over and over because of who we are. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Nothing more.
Yeah. and then the response of justice. And how that even because of who we are, how the lack thereof, because of who we are, and that's and it really distorts, I think it distorts in a lot of people's mind what justice should be. If you see a black person killed, and then and for instance the example of Trayvon Martin. Zimmerman sold the gun that he killed Trayvon Martin with to the highest bidder on an auction, and this man is walking.
But
and it's traumatizing.
We have to. I mean, we have been here time and time again, and so then you have folks who are in positions of power. You have these mayors. You have these. Senators, whomever, you have all these folks who are in a position of power that can do a number of different things that are within their purview of completing, and all you hear back from them is, we need time. Give us time. And that's one question. It's one of my favorite questions that was always presented by James Baldwin is, how much time do you want? How much time? He said it's taking my mother's time, my sister's time, my brother's time. How much more time do you want for your progress? Because at this point, we are seeing the same stuff over and over. Right. So if we go back to what we said, where there is no will, there will never be a way. Right. We need that will to be shown. We need that will to exist from folks. Those allies we're talking about, we need that will to exist from them to actually change some stuff. Right. And then maybe we will have a way from them.
That's right. What are some trainings, resources that can help police better serve their communities? remain healthy, and understand the communities they serve. Is trauma-informed care an effective resource for that?
For police officers?
Yeah.
Yes, of course. And so when we talk about training, what we see oftentimes is that kind of, and I think there was another question that we were kind of talking about, the whole defunding of the police, right? And so we'll kind of merge those two a little bit together.
Yeah.
And so what we know is from a lot of different places, I think I was looking at St. Louis City, it was like almost somewhere close to half, and I'm speaking in general terms, but somewhere close to like half of their budget goes towards the police department. And so when we see that we are giving these large budgets to police departments and we're not seeing what it is we want to see out of them as citizens, we're gonna have to think about this a little bit, right? So just to kind of skip forward and then come back a little bit, I'm all for defunding of the police. And so when we say defund, though, we're looking at the reallocation of funds. We're gonna have to figure this out. Some is not working. And so a lot of times what I've seen before in a lot of different police departments, you'll see police departments begin to push money towards like more tactical gear. You'll see police departments putting more money towards the things that they need, like cars and uniforms and all that stuff, which those are things that are needed as well too. But we need to move some of this funding around so we can now begin to teach, so officers can have a certain level of like cultural competency. We were talking about that first, right? They need to be able to understand about all the different people around them, and they need to be able to understand how to serve all these different people around them. They need to have more training that goes into focusing on their implicit bias, or learning how to recognize their implicit biases. We need to have more training that goes into communication, actually effective communication, right? When we're talking about the de-escalation. And so we have little tidbits of that training on police departments. It's almost like they do just enough to say that they're doing it. But it needs to get to a point where you receive more training on that than it is that you do on with all of the tactical with all of the tactical stuff, right? And the active shooter, because you still need training, like active shooters and stuff. You still need that. We're still police officers. We still face those situations quite often. But we got to make sure that we are turning this training around, right? We got to make sure that we're learning how to serve people. We have to make sure we're learning how to have that effective conversation to where we can actually have an impact on crime. That's where a lot of that change needs to come from. And so if police departments, cool, you want to hold on to your money, your funding, whatever, okay, we're going to revamp this a little bit, right? I do believe that a lot more funding should go into social services from police departments. I do agree with the fact that at one point I think St. Louis City was trying to do it. I don't know what happened, but having social workers from the police department, making sure you are putting into more training to having bilingual people that work on the police department, making sure you're having all of this other stuff, right? We have officers who are CRT training. They know how to deal with what they will call emotionally disturbed persons. You have to make sure you have all of that, and not just that active shooter training. So that's definitely something that police departments can change and do better with.
Yeah, that's real. And yeah, you're spot on. So I'm going to move ahead a little bit as we kind of wrap up. And I would just say, what advice or tools can people use ethically to defend themselves against the breaching of their rights by law enforcement?
So we used to do these. I was a part of another organization called Noble, and that was filled amongst like Black police officers, and so we would do these trainings or seminars, if you will, where we would teach people how to file complaints, making sure they knew what their rights were as they existed within traffic stops, what it is that officers can and cannot do, what it is that you as a person can or citizen can or cannot do when you come into an interaction with a police officer. That's one thing that I think that we should even do as much. Because then this goes into a lot of that transparency that police departments like to talk about that they have. That's what transparency really is. Transparency is truly education. Giving people the knowledge that they need about police departments and how they're ran before you get to the point of having an officer involved shooting, before you get to the point of where you have to have a press conference or whatever. That transparency comes in form of the way of education. So we need to tell folks, and I do it all the time. Like, look, if you need to file a complaint on a police officer, this is how you do it. You go to the website and do it. You go to board meetings and you do it. You speak to the board of police commissioners. You make sure that hey, our policies are online. All of our articles, which are kind of like what we can be charged with as police officers, All of those articles exist online. If a police officer does this, and this is what you can say. This is the article that they wrote when they had that interaction with you. So that's what I would get. I wish we could get to the point where on a greater level, and we've done that, like I said, with the Ethical Society and with Noble, but I wish we could get it to a point where even police departments begin to do it. Hey, look, we want you to come and tell us about those bad police officers that we have, and this is how you can do it now, and then this is what we're going to do to make sure that we are listening to you and we are getting either rid of these officers, giving them training, because training doesn't necessarily always work. You got to get rid of some folks. But this is what we're doing. When we're going to get rid of these police officers, this is what we're going to do to train these police officers. This is what we're going to do is we're going to take their commission away, or whatever it is that you need to do.
Right.
But that is one thing that I think we need to have the most knowledge about as folks. Knowing what it is that police officers can and cannot do. So we can get those ones not doing what they're supposed to, get them off the street, take their shirt and badge off of them.
You hear me? Because, so we're going to move to the point, and thank you for all of your input.
No problem.
I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I don't know, about those of you who are tuning in, but I mean, this conversation has been so eye-opening for me. We had a situation where, and I'm gonna say this shortly.
I got some questions.
But we had a situation where, we had to call the police on the police because we was like, yo, like, what's going on? Like,
right.
And so, she, made a call and she was like, hey, I don't feel comfortable with, X, Y, Z. Yeah.
Please call. Please call. Ask for supervisors. Please call. Look, you got my number now.
Right. I'm gonna call you. Look, you gonna pull up.
We gonna figure this out. Like we have to figure how we need to make the point. Whatever it is we need to do, we'll figure this out together.
Yeah. So. And I'd like to learn a little bit more about that. What was that organization you said?
The Ethical Society of Police.
And then I thought you mentioned one more that kind of
Noble.
Noble.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Noble is similar, but it's on a national level.
Okay.
Noble is a national organization for Black law enforcement and officers and executives. But Noble is from a national level, and then you have the National Association of Black Police Officers. You got a couple of them that are out there, but the ones who definitely do the fight or in the fight. Like I said, I can speak of Ethical Society all day long. Okay. We mentioned this fight, so.
Okay, yeah, and we'll rap more about that. So we're going to wrap up. We got some questions. I know some people on live had a few questions, so we'll do about 5 to 10 minutes of that and wrap up.
Okay, so Clayton Powell Stans had a question for you, and his questions are: what are your thoughts on qualified immunity?
That is definitely something. So that's one of the things that's within the police reform that they were talking about on the national level. We definitely need to have changes on that. There's a number of different things that we have changes that we asked for from the Ethical Society. It was from qualified immunity, from mandated reporting of police officers. Changes need to exist within all of those. We have at least 5 topics that need to have changes on, which is the qualified immunity, which is, like I said, the mandated reporting of police officers that have been terminated and stripping them of their licenses. All of those different things need to be changed. And I can't remember where I know Mr. Powell's name from, but I'm actually, if I can, if he's still on that live, I'm gonna send him a host of different information, because I know you said 5 to 10 minutes. I'm gonna see if I can send him a bunch of different information on that as well.
Okay, and the next one is from Carolee White. How much is mental health prioritized for officers' secondary and primary trauma experiences?
That's the way you look like.
I don't know if I can't say. I personally don't feel as if it's a top priority. And that's my personal feelings within it. Like I said, this within the last couple of years, I don't remember the exact numbers, but the numbers of officer suicides have exceeded the numbers of officers who have been killed in the line of duty. So that should tell you how much of a priority it should be. When you have those numbers surpass that, it definitely needs to be one. I personally don't feel as if it's a priority. Now there's a bunch of different resources that exist out there. We have some remedies for that, like our employee assistance program and stuff, but it should be a bigger priority than what it is.
Okay, and then let's see. Those were the only 2 questions for right now.
Okay.
Well, I think it's safe to close, and I thank you so much again for coming out on Saturday morning. I know usually we sleep in, we watch Saturday morning cartoons, but no, and I know you will have some more information, and we can talk about.
I'll give you some more. The conversation goes on and on. I mean, we can stay here probably for the next 7 days and talk about from all the issues that exist and all the things that need to change and all the issues, like I said, even from the qualified immunity to the mandated reporting to the termination of people to, it goes on and on and on.
Yeah. Well, I think that sums it up for a right to remain vocal. Once again, I just want to thank those of you who did get a chance to tune in. I just want to thank you, Ms. Hall, because we need to have these kind of conversations to be able to kind of bridge the gaps and create understanding, and then know what it is that we're fighting for and fighting against. With everything shared today, I'll be reaching out to Ms. Hall to gather some more of that information, those organizations, and I can inbox people as well to send them that information as well. This is going to be one of many conversations. We're going to, I would love to even reach out to more people within the ethical society to have more conversations like this, or even multiple people chiming in at once, or a board. What's that word called? A panel discussion, something like that. So we can definitely talk more about that. But I just want to thank you. I want to thank my wonderful fiance in the back doing the camera, doing the questions. Somebody else got a question?
A fellow police officer, I think Nathan Isaac. He said, "Hey, that's my sister."
Yes.
Shout out. That's that love we were talking about. That's that love. Oh yeah, most definitely. Oh yeah, you next. But that's it for today. And once again, like I said, thank everyone for tuning in. And we're going to have more of these going forward. This is important. This is important for our community. And much love. STL, let's get it. Let's go ahead and keep this thing going.
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you.